Taking a wine order. When taking a wine order, there are a series of steps to follow that will help you to deliver amazing service and improve your wine sales. It is through this level of service that your guests have a wonderful time while under your care. We'll be looking at the following steps. Present the wine list. Make a suggestion. Take the order. Bring the correct glassware. And set up an ice bucket. Let's begin with how to present the wine list to the guest. The wine list is usually presented to the guests as they are seated, when you deliver the food menus. At every table there is someone who will take charge of ordering the wine. This is not always a gentleman, so it is better to ask who is going to take the order than to assume incorrectly. As soon as you arrive at the table with the wine list, find out who is in charge. For example, "Good evening, welcome to Feast Restaurant. My name is James and I will be your server this evening. Can I please ask who is in charge of ordering the wine, so I can leave them with the wine list?" We will call the person who takes the wine list the host, because he or she is served slightly differently. Because you will pour from the right side, and it is excellent service to be consistent, always deliver the menu on the right side of the guest too. Now let's look at how to make a suggestion. If your wine knowledge is good enough and you are confident, it is now a great time to make a suggestion of a good bottle or glass of wine for an aperitif. A sparkling or dry white wine are good options. For example, after you have given the host the wine list, you could say, "While you are looking through our wine list, could I suggest something to start with? The refreshing Craggy Range Sauvignon Blanc 2013 from Marlborough, New Zealand would be an excellent way to start your evening." The reason you offer your guests something to drink as soon as possible is twofold. Firstly, a refreshing sparkling or white wine is an excellent way to stimulate the appetite. And secondly, it gives you the chance to sell a second glass or bottle of wine sooner. Next, we'll take a look at how to take the order. Always stand to the right of the host when taking their order. Confirm their order by repeating the name of the wine and commend them on their excellent choice. For example, by saying, "A bottle of the William Febvre Chablis 2009. Excellent choice, Mr. Cooper." In the case of red wines that are 10 years or older, ask the host whether they would like the wine decanted. We'll take a look at how to do this in a later lesson. Now you can bring the correct glassware to the table. Now that you know what the guests have ordered, you can bring the correct glassware for the specific wine that they have ordered, if it's not already on the table. That is white wine glasses if a white wine has been ordered, and red for a red wine. If you have to place new glassware on the table, start with the host and work your way around the table clockwise, placing the glassware to the right of each guest in a consistent manner. At your establishment, it may be standard to place the glassware for the ladies first, and not the host first, so ensure that you know the standard at your establishment. If there is space, now is a good time to bring the underliners for the bottle, cork, and decanters to the table. Next, set up an ice bucket. If your guests ordered sparkling, white, or rosé wine, set up an ice bucket to keep the wines chilled. To set up an ice bucket, fetch a clean, polished ice bucket. Add blocks of ice until the bucket is about halfway full. Add water to about 1/4 of the way up. At this level, it allows the ice to move freely to insert a bottle of wine. You can now place the ice bucket alongside the guest's table and cover the top with a clean, folded service cloth. The cloth is used to dry the bottle when the wine is removed to be poured. Otherwise, water will drip all over the guest's table. The ice bucket should be in easy reach of the host, but should not make walking around the table difficult. So let's recap on how to take a wine order. Present the wine list to the guest. Make a suggestion. Take the order. Bring the correct glassware. Set up an ice bucket. Enjoy taking wine orders. In the next lesson, we will learn how to present the wine. Presenting the wine. Now that you have taken the wine order, delivered the glassware, and if needed, set up an ice bucket, you are ready to present the wine. In this lesson, we will learn how to fetch the wine, present the bottle to the guest, and look at some tips for ordering a second bottle. First, let's look at how to fetch the wine. When you fetch the wine from the wine storage area, make sure that you look at the front and back label. This ensures that you have the correct wine and gives you valuable information about the wine, such as where it is from or who the winemaker is. You can use this information when presenting the wine to your guests. If you pour wine at your bar or establishment using a necktie or service cloth, make sure that you fetch and prepare these items when fetching the wine. It is also at this time that you need to make sure you have an opener to open the bottle of wine. Finally, make sure that the bottle is clean and that there is no dust on the bottle before taking it out and presenting it to your guest. The next step is to present the bottle to the guest. Now that you have the bottle prepared, along with some useful information about the wine memorized, you are ready to present the bottle to the guest. You can now present the bottle to the host by following these steps. Step 1. Hold the bottle neatly, underlined by a napkin, either in your hand or resting on your forearm. Make sure that the label is always facing the host. Step 2. Confidently describe the wine you are presenting to the host by announcing the producer's name, the cultivar or type of wine, and the vintage or year. For example, Mr. Cooper, the Chateau Margaux 1998. This allows the guest to see and confirm that it is the correct bottle. If you simply open the bottle before checking, it can be a very costly mistake if it is the wrong bottle. And lastly, step 3. If you have any other additional information about the wine, you can also say it now. You are now ready to open the bottle of wine for your guests at their table. Let's finish off by looking at some tips for ordering a second bottle. Just like with other drinks, when the bottle of wine is finished, you should offer the host the choice of ordering another bottle of the same wine, or if they would like to order a different bottle. If the guests would like a different wine, you must bring them the wine list again. If guests are ordering a second, different bottle of wine, you should always bring new glassware. Each wine is different and guests don't want the old wine in the glass to mix with the new wine. When possible, always place the new glasses to the right of the old glasses, so you do not have to pour over the previous wine. Just like with removing anything from the table, always ask the guest before taking their wine glasses away. For example, Mr. Cooper, may I remove your red wine glass? Finally, if guests order another bottle of the same wine which they are currently enjoying, ask them whether they would like new glasses or not. They will most likely say no, but it is still excellent service to pay attention to these details. Remember that you will still need to pour them a taster of the new wine which they have ordered, and you must bring a new, clean glass for this. So to recap, in this lesson, we learned how to fetch the wine, present the bottle to the guest, and tips for ordering a second bottle. Opening a bottle of wine. Now that you've presented the wine to the guest and they have confirmed that it is correct, you can open the wine. In this lesson, we'll be discussing how to open a bottle of wine and some do's and don'ts when opening wine. Let's start with how to open a bottle of wine. Opening a bottle of wine has 10 steps. Step 1. Ensure you have the correct equipment, that is your waiter's friend and a clean service cloth. You'll remember that this forms part of your waiter's toolkit. Step 2. If you are opening the wine at the table, which you should do whenever possible, the label must face the host. This is excellent service. Step 3. Use the knife on your opener to cut the capsule, that is, the foil at the top of the bottle. Do not move the bottle around the blade of the knife. We always try to move the bottle as little as possible. Make sure you cut it beneath the second or lower lip. This is so that when the wine is poured, the foil doesn't contaminate the wine. Put the foil in your pocket. Step 4. Wipe the top of the cork to make sure there is no dirt or dust on it. Step 5. Without resting it on your body, hold the bottle by the neck with your service cloth, so that your hands don't dirty the opening. Step 6. Insert the corkscrew straight into the cork. As you turn, make sure that the corkscrew goes in straight, otherwise the cork could break. Step 7. Clamp the lever of the opener onto the rim of the bottle, still holding it with the service cloth. Step 8. Use the other end of the opener to pull the cork until it is almost out. Step 9. Use your service cloth to gently and silently ease the cork out the rest of the way. The cork should never ever pop. Then, wipe the opening with your service cloth to make sure it is clean. Step 10. Place the bottle of wine on an underliner. Remove the cork from the corkscrew and present to the guest on a small tray or coaster. They may wish to look at it or smell it to better appreciate the wine. So to recap these 10 steps, Step 1. Get your equipment. Step 2. Turn the label to face the guest. Step 3. Cut the capsule. Step 4. Wipe the top of the cork. Step 5. Hold with the service cloth, away from your body. Step 6. Insert the corkscrew. Step 7. Clamp the lever of the opener. Step 8. Pull the cork until almost out. Step 9. Ease the cork out. Step 10. Place the bottle on an underliner and present the cork to the guest. Now let's look at some do's and don'ts when opening a bottle of wine. Don't touch the opening of the bottle, and always use your service cloth. If you touch the opening with your fingers, they will contaminate the opening and the wine when it is poured through the opening. Insert the corkscrew straight into the bottle and pull it out as straight as possible. If not, the cork could break and leave pieces of cork in the wine. If the wine you're opening is a screw cap, still use your service cloth to twist the cap and to wipe the lip of the bottle. However, don't present the cap to the guest. So in this lesson, we looked at how to open a bottle of wine and some do's and don'ts when opening wine. Enjoy opening wine perfectly and professionally. The 3 methods of opening wine. Now that you know how to open a bottle of wine, let's look at the 3 different variations that can be used. The difference between these methods is where the bottle is opened. How the bottle is opened does not change, and all the steps you learned in the last lesson should be followed. Now let's look at the in-hand method, the on-table method, and the in-ice bucket method. Let's start with the in-hand method. In the previous lesson where you learned how to open a bottle of wine, the waiter used the in-hand method. This means opening the bottle away from the body, or in the air, without the bottle ever touching the body. This is a good method if there is very little space around the table. Now let's look at the on-table method. In this method, after the wine is presented, the bottle is opened on an underliner, on the guest's table, or at a side station. The label should always stay facing the host. Remember, you should have already placed the underliner on the table after you place the glasses. If there is enough space at the table, this is a good method because the bottle of wine will move less and there is no chance of you dropping it. Now let's look at the in-ice bucket method. If you are serving sparkling, white, or rosé wine, you can also use this method. In this method, after the wine has been presented, you simply open the bottle in the ice bucket. If you are going to use this method, make sure the bottle is resting on the bottom of the ice bucket, and the ice bucket stand is stable. This is a good method if you do not want to use the in-hand method, and there is no space on the guest's table. All of these methods are excellent ways to open a bottle of wine. Check with your establishment to find out which one they prefer. So to recap, in this lesson we learnt about the in-hand method, the on-table method, and the in-ice bucket method. Enjoy opening bottles of wine using these different methods. Serving wine. Now that you've presented the wine to the guest and opened the bottle, you're ready to serve the wine. In this lesson, we'll be looking at these points: using a service cloth, pouring the wine, finer points when pouring, and placing the bottle. Let's start with using a service cloth. Before serving wine, ensure that you have a clean service cloth or waiter's hand. This is folded up neatly and held in the palm of your free hand so that you can wipe the lip of the bottle once you are finished pouring to prevent dripping. A service cloth is also useful to dry the bottle after it has been in the ice bucket. Now let's look at pouring the wine. Start by pouring a taster for the host, so that they can approve that the wine is satisfactory. This taster should be about 30 milliliters. If the host approves, you can fill the other glasses, starting with ladies, moving clockwise around the table from the host, then the gentleman, and finally the host. The host's glass is always filled last, even if she is a lady. If there is a guest of honor, serve that person first, then the ladies, then the gentleman, and finally the host. If there are 8 or more guests at the table, it is acceptable to pour for everyone in a clockwise direction, regardless of whether they are ladies or gentlemen. Fill the glasses to between a third and half full, depending on the design of the glass. Glasses must never be overfilled, since it's uncomfortable to drink and the wine will get warm. Next, let's look at some finer points when pouring. When pouring, ensure that the label is facing the guest. This is excellent service. Also, never allow the bottle to touch the rim of the glass. Keep it a few centimeters above it. Similarly, don't pour from too high, since this will cause splashing. When serving wine to a large group, you must pour equal amounts so that everyone at the table has wine. It would be very poor service if you were to pour full glasses for the first few guests and have none left over for the last few. Be sure to practice this. Finally, let's look at placing the bottle. Once you have poured wine for all the guests, you can place the bottle. If the guests are drinking a bottle of sparkling or white wine, you should ask the host whether he or she would like the bottle to be placed in the ice bucket or on the table. Sometimes, if the host thinks the wine is too cold, they might want it to be left on the table to warm up a bit. Red wine should be placed on the table, and it must always be on an underliner. Wherever the wine is placed, it should be in easy reach of the host. This way, the bottle is at hand for top-ups. So to recap, in this lesson, we looked at using a service cloth, pouring the wine, finer points on pouring, and placing the bottle. Good luck providing exceptional wine service at your establishment. Understanding decanting. Decanting is one of the most specific and advanced procedures involved in the service of wine. Guests will also be very particular about the way in which decanting should be done, so it is crucial that you understand how to do it, and do it perfectly every time. Along with this, if you can decant wine with accuracy, style, and charm, you will be portraying a great deal of skill and professionalism to your guests. In this lesson, we'll be looking at what is decanting, why we decant wine, and the equipment used for decanting. Let's start with asking, what is decanting? Decanting wine is simply to transfer wine from the bottle in which it has been bottled and stored into a dedicated wine decanter designed for the purpose. These decanters come in many shapes and sizes, but are usually made of glass and have a long neck for pouring the wine into glasses. Now let's look at why we decant wine. Decanting is important for two main reasons. Firstly, by decanting younger wines, it allows the wine, which has been trapped in a bottle for a long period of time, to come into contact with oxygen and breathe. This softens the wine and brings out all of its wonderful flavors and aromas. Decanting opens the wine beautifully. And secondly, when drinking older wines, which are roughly 10 years old or older, decanting allows you to separate the wine from a fine layer of sediment or particles which often settle at the bottom of the bottle. While these particles aren't harmful, guests don't want them in their glasses when drinking wine, and so the wine is decanted, leaving the sediment behind in the bottle. Now let's look at the equipment used for decanting. When you have to decant a bottle of wine, specialized equipment is used. To decant a bottle of wine, you will need a service cart or wine station, where you can open and decant the wine. As you will see, you need quite a bit of equipment to properly decant a bottle of wine. For this reason, it is preferred that a service cart on wheels is used, so all your equipment can be wheeled to the table, and the wine can be decanted there. If you do not have a service cart at your establishment, you can decant the wine at your wine station. A decanting basket. The decanting basket is a specially made basket used to bring up an old bottle of wine from the cellar, so the sediment is not disturbed. If you do not have a decanting basket, a normal basket can be used. 3 underliners to place the bottle, decanter, and cork. A small tray can be used for the cork as well. A corkscrew with a built-in knife. Service cloths and waiter's hand to wipe the bottle and catch drops while pouring. A candle and a lighter to light it. The lit candle will be used to illuminate the bottle as you pour. We will learn more about this in the next lesson. And finally, a decanter. If you don't have a decanter and your guests ask for one, you can use a glass jug. It is very important that you practice pouring from the particular decanter at your establishment. Designs differ and some can be quite tricky, so be sure to master this technique with water before service. Well done on learning about decanting. In the next lesson, we are going to learn more about old wine. Understanding old wine. As we have learned, decanting is mainly used for separating the sediment from old bottles of wine. Drinking properly aged red wine is one of the greatest pleasures for wine lovers, so knowing how to handle an old bottle of wine is very important. In this lesson, we are going to learn about handling old wines and using a decanting basket. Let's start by learning about handling old wines. Only the best wines age for a long time, so it is vital that if you are serving one, you know how to handle them. It is always a special occasion for your guests when a fine old bottle of wine is opened, and your job is to make sure the occasion goes off without a hitch. The most important thing to remember is to be gentle. If the bottle moves too much, the sediment will get mixed with the wine, and this will spoil the occasion. Wines are normally stored lying down. What is important to remember is whatever position the bottle is in when you collect it from the cellar or wine storage area, it must remain in that position until you decant it. This means knowing how to move it using a decanting basket. So now let's look at the correct way to use a decanting basket. Step 1. Line your decanting basket with a service cloth. Step 2. Locate the wine in the cellar. Make sure you have found the correct wine before you take it out. Step 3. Slowly take the bottle out, keeping it at the same angle. Step 4. Slowly maneuver the decanting basket around the bottle. Do not place the bottle into the basket, as this will mix the sediment in the wine. Step 5. Now you can gently take the bottle of wine in the decanting basket to your service cart or wine station. Old bottles of wine should have been stored with their labels facing up. If the wine you are fetching has been stored with the label facing down, do not turn it around when you place it in the decanting basket. Just place it in the decanting basket as is. And you can explain to the guest later why the label is not facing up. Well done, and enjoy handling and moving old bottles of wine with a decanting basket. How to decant wine. Now that you have a better understanding of why we decant wine, what equipment you need, and how to handle old wines, let's take a look at the steps involved in decanting a bottle of wine. Note that just because we're decanting the wine, we still provide all the other elements of wine service, including pouring a taster and filling ladies' glasses first. The simple presenting and opening of the bottle is merely replaced with the decanting process. To decant a bottle of wine, you must follow these steps: prepare, fetch the wine, present the wine, open the wine, decant the wine, and serve the wine. Step 1. Prepare. Before you can decant a bottle of wine, make sure you have all your equipment ready. Can you notice which items are missing? That's right, the candle and lighter were missing. Once your service cart is prepared, you can fetch the wine. Step 2. Fetch the wine. Now you can use the decanting basket, as we learned in the previous lesson. Once you have brought it up to your service cart, make sure the bottle is clean. Now is the best time to light your candle. Always light the candle away from the guests, so the smell of the lighter or matches do not interfere with their enjoyment of the wine. Now that everything is ready, you can roll the service cart to the guest's table and present the wine. Step 3. Present the wine. Now you are ready to present the wine to the host. Gently bring the bottle in the decanting basket from the service cart and present it to the host. Just like in normal wine service, describe the wine you are presenting. When the host has confirmed that it is the correct wine, you can carefully take the wine in the decanting basket back to the service cart. Remember, If the bottle was not stored with the label facing up, do not turn it around. Present the bottle as it is and explain the situation to the guests. Explain to them how you do not want to disturb the sediment in the wine. Step 4. Open the wine. Now you are ready to open the wine. Because we want the wine to move as little as possible, the wine will be opened inside the decanting basket. If the angle of the bottle in the decanting basket is too low, use an underliner or service cloth to prop it up. The angle must be high enough so no wine spills when the bottle is opened. Remove the foil as cleanly as possible at the second lip or ridge and place the foil in your pocket. Wipe the lip of the bottle to remove any dust or mold that may have accumulated. Carefully extract the cork, keeping the bottle as still as possible. Remember to finish pulling out the cork by hand without making any sound. There is no rush, so be slow and gentle. Older corks are more delicate than new ones, so you should be extra careful if the bottle is old. Place the cork on an underliner or display tray and present it to the guest for inspection. Wipe the lip of the bottle again with your service cloth to make sure there are no bits of cork left on the bottle. Step 5. Pour the bottle into the decanter. Now you are ready to decant the wine. Carefully take the bottle out of the basket and hold it a safe distance above the candle, but close enough so that you can see the flame through the bottle's neck. With your other hand hold the decanter. Now you can begin to pour the wine from the bottle into the decanter slowly and gently. Make sure that as the bottle empties you have a good view of the bottle's neck, and the light from the candle is illuminating it from beneath. This allows you to see the sediment before it goes into the decanter. Do not let the bottle's neck touch the decanter, and never look away as you pour, otherwise you may not see the sediment and it will get into the guest's wine. Only stop pouring when you see the sediment. When you do, stop pouring immediately, as you don't want any of the sediment from the bottle going into the decanter. Step 6. Serve the wine. Place the decanter on your service cart. Make sure you wipe any drips that may be on the bottle with your service cloth, and place the bottle on an underliner, with the label facing the guest. Now you can pour a taster for the host, and carry on serving the wine like we have already learnt. Ask the host if they would like you to leave the decanter and bottle on the table. If they do, make sure both are placed on underliners. Finally, ask the host if you may remove the cork. Let's recap what we have learned in this lesson and how to decant an old bottle of wine. We learned how to prepare, fetch the wine, present the wine, open the wine, decant the wine, and serve the wine. Congratulations on learning about the most specific procedures in wine service, and enjoy decanting many bottles of wine. In the next lesson, we will learn about a few more tips for decanting wine. Tips for decanting. In this lesson, we are going to learn about a few more tips for decanting wines that will help you provide excellent service and improve not only your guests' experience, but also your wine sales. In this lesson, we will learn about how long to decant wines for and what to do when a guest brings their own wine. Let's start by looking at how long to decant wines for. Old bottles of wine are affected by oxygen, but if it is left in the decanter too long, much of the flavor and complexity of the wine will fade. So if you are decanting an old wine, it should be served directly after it is decanted. If the guests would like a young wine to be decanted, it is excellent service to ask if you can decant the wine at the beginning of the meal, so they can enjoy it later on. When a young red wine is opened, it can be closed or a little astringent. But after some time in the decanter, it will open up beautifully. Now let's look at what to do when a guest brings their own wine. Normally, when a guest has brought their own bottle of wine, it is a special bottle. Different restaurants have different policies on whether guests can bring their own bottle of wine. When you see that a guest has brought their own bottle, you should always ask how they would like the wine to be served. For example, "Mr. Johnson, I see that you have bought a special bottle of wine this evening. Would you like it to be decanted?" Remember to check the vintage or date on the bottle. If it is 10 years or older, make sure to follow the steps to decanting an old bottle of wine. If it is an old wine, make sure to ask the guest when they would like to drink it, because an old wine should be served as soon as it is decanted. If it is a young wine, it would be excellent service to ask if they would like the wine to be decanted immediately, which will give the wine time to breathe, and then the wine can be served when the host requires it. Let's recap. In this lesson, we have learnt about how long to decant wines for, and what to do when a guest brings their own wine. Congratulations on learning about some tips on decanting, and good luck on decanting wine professionally and skillfully. Wine by the glass. Often at establishments there are a number of wines that can be ordered by the glass, rather than ordering an entire bottle. This allows guests who want to drink less to do so, and also provides the opportunity for smaller tables to pair their wine and food with each course. Let's take a look at adjusting service for wine by the glass. We will be focusing on the following steps. Take the order, fetch the glassware, fetch the wine, present the bottle, serve the wine, and tips for offering another glass. Let's start with how to take the order. Ensure that you know beforehand which wines are served by the glass. Take the guest's order and confirm. For example, a glass of the Chateau Beau Rivage. Excellent choice, Mr. Johnson. Now you can go and fetch the glassware. If the guest ordered white wine by the glass, bring a white wine glass, and a red wine glass for red wine. If it is the style of wine to serve the wine in a carafe, a small decanter, you may also bring the glass with the carafe to minimize visits to the table. Now you can go and fetch the wine. If it is standard at your property to serve the wine in a carafe, make sure that you measure the correct amount of wine and decant it back of house. Alternatively, fetch the bottle of wine from the beverage pass. Now it's time to present the bottle. Take the wine to the table and present it to the guest who ordered the glass by saying, "Mr. Johnson, the Chateau Beau Rivage." Now we can serve the wine. Even though the wine is served by the glass, you should still pour a taster for the guest to approve. If the guest is happy with the wine, you can fill the glass. If there is more than one guest who ordered the wine by the glass, remember to fill the ladies' glasses first, then the gentleman, then back to the host. Ensure that you know how full to fill the glass. This will depend on your establishment's policy and the style of wine glass, but usually a standard small glass of wine is about 175 milliliters, and a large standard glass is 250 milliliters. Now let's look at how to improve your wine sales with some tips for offering a second glass. When guests have finished their first glass of wine, you should ask them whether they would like another. Remember, the guest should not have to wait longer than 2 minutes after their glass is empty. To improve your wine sales, you should offer another glass to guests in a way that gives you a better chance of another order. The best way to do this is with a question that doesn't ask for a yes or no answer. For example, instead of asking, "Miss Ross, would you like another glass of wine?" where she can easily answer no. Instead, you should ask, "Miss Ross, can I get you another glass of the same wine, or would you prefer something different?" In this way, you are sure to sell more glasses of wine. So the points to remember when serving wine by the glass are: take the order, fetch the glassware, fetch the wine, present the bottle, serve the wine, and tips for offering a second glass. Enjoy adapting service when serving wine by the glass.